Hi everyone, this is my current take on the Premodern Elves build. The last video I published was in July, I believe, of 2023, so quite a long time ago, and the reason why that was my last video was because my first child was born. She's 14 months now, so she's doing a lot more playing by herself and I have more time to make some videos, so anyway, without further ado, I'm back from hiatus, and I just wanted to get into my new take on Premodern Elves. I'm back playing, and so hopefully I can produce some nice content for you with this deck and some other decks. So my version of Elves runs 17 lands, and the reason why I did the mathematics, I ran this through calculations, and I just found that yes, it does increase your mulligan chance, but very, very slightly. And, in a survival of the fittest deck, having basically one extra slot is such a big deal. Like, for example, you could think about that 18th land instead as, just having that random option like a Well-Wisher, that extra slot, that one extra slot provides so much more versatility that I believed in my assessment it helped with the, helped the deck be more successful and be able to handle a wide variety of matchups. So I'm currently in a monthly. I do have my first game done. I'll post the video of that to me walking through this deck so you can see some action. But effectively you can see. Just want to talk about a few things. Notably, I run 3 Quirion Rangers instead of 4, and that's mainly because again, so um, in Magic theory, you have to think about the detriment when you have 4 of something. You have to think about the detriment, the potential detriment of having drawing multiple Quirion Rangers, and the problem is, of course, that Quirion Ranger is one of those cards that in multiples starts to get a lot worse. It's not like I'd be happy to have as many land wars as I could put. I would put more if I could probably, but I wouldn't cut any of these, and Priest of Titania I definitely wouldn't cut because this is sort of the cornerstone of where you can really of the sort of combo part of this deck where you just go off and win the game. So I definitely wouldn't cut the Priest of Titania, at least not in the main deck. But Quirion Ranger is one of those. Is just a card that is just not as good in multiples. Wirewood is good in multiples because usually this is the lightning rod for removal, and so usually your first one's gonna get STP'd, bolted, or and such, and also because it combos with the Alkalite. That's the Wirewood Alkalite combo, draw 2 extra cards every turn cycle, is so strong that you do want to have as many Wirewoods as you can for that combination. I do run an Emerald Charm, so I just find having the ability to destroy an enchantment very, very helpful without pre-board. Of course, we do have an Antuco Vigilante, but against cards like what's it called? Humility. You have just having those outs. I find is really important. Again, it's like having one just checks off a lot of potential versatility facets of your deck. It provides you with it opens so many more doors than not having one at all. And so, worst case, there is no enchantment you want to kill. It still lets you effectively just untap. It lets you combo off faster. You just untap a Cradle or a Priest, and you can for extra mana. So I've very rarely found this card dead. Okay, everything pretty much self-explanatory. So there's Wall of Roots. I used to play, as you can see, I have 2 natural orders, which I'll explain later. I used to run more Wall of Roots, like 2 or 3 in my previous builds. This build is different from my July 2023 build in that I have natural orders. I've been experimenting with this card and I actually do like it quite a bit. But I used to have more Wall of Roots, and some people have been running Wall of Blossoms, but Wall of Roots is just unbelievably strong in this deck. And the reason why is because it lets you play a game where if your opponent, let's say, has a Engineered Plague, or if they have just sort of lightning bolts, or it just lets you get lets you have a creature for Gaia's Cradle. It lets you produce basically 2 mana every turn cycle. So this, with the survival of the fittest, often the problem with survival is you get the survival down but you sacrifice your tempo and sometimes in terms of maybe playing a priest, or you may not necessarily, like, there's hands you're going to keep that don't have Finhorn or Landwar Elves quite a bit of the time, but you have a survival. That's why you kept the hand, and being able to, if you have Wall of Roots, being able to get that extra mana, like 2 mana a turn cycle if you need it, to just get that squee in the graveyard, that anger in the graveyard, is very important, I find. So this is a deck that needs mana more than it needs cards as well. So the drawing cards from Wall of Blossoms is not like you have already draw built in with the Wirewood Symbiote, Multani's Alkalite. So you don't necessarily need to have more walls that draw cards, whereas the mana is just so strong. There's many times in this deck you get stuck where, they shoot down a couple of your mana elves and you are stuck because you have one land, let's say. But if you have Wall of Roots, it really keeps the mana flowing. So I would play more. I did cut it to experiment for Natural Order, but having at least one, I think, is strong in those situations. Of course, it's not the fast card, but it's very good in decks like when you're facing sort of more grindier decks like the Rock. It's very strong, etc. And so in those situations, so having one is still fine, because again, once you have it, you can just keep bringing it back with Genesis usually. So it keeps that door open there. But typically, yes, I would be happy with 2 in the 75. So it's a potential for maybe in future builds to have a second one somewhere. Okay, so 1 Collar of the Claw, as usual, so pretty self-explanatory. Right now I'm having trouble with, so this list only has 2 Collar of the Claws so far. Right now I'm having problems with like this new, so I've been away for a year. There's this like Dead Guy Ale, the the white black deck is it's really kind of, I have to figure out how to beat it. And typically how I figure out how to beat decks, by the way, is I go into Cockatrice, and basically I play the deck against myself like 20 different games, 25, 100 different games. Sometimes I just spend 2 days playing, and from there you really learn, like, okay, against this deck, for example, is it better to try to combo off quickly and win with a Biorhythm? Or do I want to try to, maybe outgrind them with Alkalite and Wirewood Symbiote and this kind of thing? But I think, so often with control, you don't outgrind control, like the blue-white control decks. But how you typically win is you either try to combo off quickly, which is tough because they have counter magic, but usually they can't stop everything. But typically what I try to do is I try to wait for them to Wrath, and then I Collar, and then I continue with the pressure, and that is usually enough. I've had a favorable matchup against the blue-white control builds. However, against the Dead Guy Ale, I'm not 100% sure, but I might go up on the Collar or the Claw number potentially, because it's just, there's so many like Infest, Wrath effects, so I'm not sure yet, but that's the only matchup I'm not sure, because this new version, it has like the Eternal Dragon, it has like that White Dragon, it has a lot of like Wrath of God and Dead Guy Ale I've seen, so that deck I haven't figured out the game plan yet. So if I face it in the upcoming league, I think I'm going to err on the side of just kind of trying to win quickly though. I think the best way is just they have a very clunky deck with the skeletal scrying, and so you just want to, I think, try to be faster, and so anyway, so so now we get to the natural orders. So this sort of I see people try this when I was on my way out, when I was leaving for when my child was born. I saw some other players put in natural order. Initially I wasn't sold, but I think, like, effectively you can think about it like, I think the 2 natural orders are good. I'll explain why 2 as well, but like the deck sort of is built to be a tutor deck. Like you have a lot of 1-ups that are part of your game plan. So like Kamal, right? You have Kamal, the ranged hermit mainly. So the big Achilles heel of this deck is when you have a bunch of, like, the big problems I have is a hand where, you have a bunch of mana elves, so Finhorn Elves, Landwar Elves, let's say Wirewood Symbiotes. But let's say you have a hand and you don't have, like, it is quite possible to keep a hand and brick on, like, actual top end to play. And so natural order serves as a way to get more copies of a particular card that you may need at a particular time. So I actually really like it in that it's basically, you know, a second and third copy of Kamal without needing survival of the fittest. The other issue is that there's some matchups where I board out survival of the fittest. So they board in all their enchantment, all this stuff, enchantment removal, and I board out my survival of the fittest, and I find that that works. And if you have natural order, that's a way of basically getting to your Kamal, your deranged hermits. If you can even just use it to play a Genesis, and of course in the sideboard a Phantom Nishoba. So, you know, it works towards that end. I'm also currently thinking about other cards. Like I did go through the list of all green creatures in Premodern. I am going to go through it again to see if there are any potential like finds with natural order, but I think for now, I think we're good with this. Um, so again, it just serves as it works. It's like a fifth and sixth copy of survival. So, you know, I've even used it to get, for example, I found it very helpful with the alkalite combos. So, for example, if you need a wirewood and you have an alkalite or vice versa, you just get the other combo piece. If you natural order for an alkalite, you get to draw a card right away, and then you can basically, even though you have to sacrifice a creature, you basically get the card advantage back. So it's really good that way. I find just for the wire, it lets you just do so many different things, and without needing survival, it's just really good. I mean, you do have to watch out about it being countered, but it's just another threat. So usually you can afford the extra body even if they counter it. It's not the end of the world. So 2 Masticores, 2 Deranged Hermits. With this deck, I just like to effectively try to get out the threats and put a quick clock on the board. What else is, again, I have 2 biorhythms just as sometimes it just gives you the option to be just a combo deck against like those decks like the one that has what's it called? It has the Frantic Search, the blue-white deck, but it uses attunement and it gets those enchantments back from the graveyard. The Replenish deck, a blue-white Replenish, just being faster is necessary. You just have to race it sometimes. So, oh yeah, so 2. Why do I have 2 copies? So it's not a card. Usually you can make 1 work in a game. So you have to, again, keep in mind how many do I not want to draw multiples of this card. So having like drawing 2 is often bad if you have 2 in your opening hand because of the sacrifice cost. So usually you can get 1 to work in a particular game, and usually you want to see 1. So 2 is the correct number for this. If I want to see 1, typically 2 is the correct number. Also, I have 2 instead of 1 as if I need to get Nishoba against Goblins. So yes, this is very strong. Goblins was a weaker matchup for this deck. I used to run actually 2 Pyroclasm just for Goblins. Yes, I know it's crazy. People call me crazy, but it actually worked out pretty well for me. And I ended up winning so I won the June Facebook online monthly. I was the champion for that back in 2023. That was my last tournament I played too. So I ended off on a good note there with winning the June monthly. I haven't played either on Facebook. It's just with an infant, it's very difficult. Magic Online is a lot easier. Just FYI, if you want to play, it does cost a bit of money, but I mean, you don't have to worry about your cards getting stolen, your house catching on fire either. So it's I mean, this deck is. I have this deck in paper. In fact, most of the cards are in a safe deposit box right now because it's just like these alone are like the deck is at least $4,000. So just anyway, so when I beat Goblins, this is very strong against Goblins. I found. So I might even play a Plains. I don't think I have the room, but if I'm considering a Plains for the Phantom Nishoba because. The Phantom Nishoba is just like against Goblins so strong, compare, and you don't really want to play Klasm as sort of a nombo with your deck, right? So, but Klasm was good. If you have a bunch of Wall of Roots, sometimes I would go, Wall of Roots, Pyroclasm, and I'm all of a sudden I'm more like a green mid-range deck against the Goblin deck. So you do need two, because if you want to consistently get Nishoba out, it's better to have two is the point. But there are many times where I draw Nishoba and I just can't play it, which kind of sucks. Because you have to search from your library, so it doesn't let you get it from your hand. And so I am exploring the potential of playing more planes, but maybe a planes in the sideboard, but I'm not 100% sold on that idea either yet. So it's more one of those things I just bank on not drawing this, and if I do, then it's bad luck, but I can still natural order for a Ravenous Baloth against goblins or something like that, and might get my Genesis in play. So that's the main idea why I have two, because one isn't enough for Nishoba, and with three you're more likely to get two, and then it's harder to make work, if that makes sense. You don't want you don't want too many of these in your opening hand. Otherwise, so I'm on 3 Naturalize and 1 Tranquil Domain. Tranquil Domain is the sort of the 4th, if you will, Naturalize. And even I play an Octabi as well, so you can see that, this is effectively 5 cards plus the Emerald Charm to destroy effectively enchantments and artifacts. 3, so the Tranquil Domain is just, again, it's one of those things where it's like statistically, instead of having 4 Naturalize, having access to sometimes one-ofs like this is good to give your deck the option to potentially draw it. And don't get me wrong, there's going to be games where you don't draw a Tranquil Domain when you're facing an enchantment deck, but having it in there gives you those percentage points, if you will. It gives you those games where you do get it, and that contributes to your win ratio. So I do have a Tranquil Domain for situations where my opponents have multiple enchantments, and it's handy. And Octabi is great because, again, it's a creature, so it's against this is mainly used for the Stifle Knot decks. So this card is just I beat Stifle Knot pretty much most of the time. I don't think I've lost a match to Stifle Knot. I think I'm 8-0 against Stifle Knot, and this card here is just a superstar and now with Natural Order too, it's just they might play a null to get rid of your Survival of the Fittest, but to get the Octabi, now you have this, it's just insane. It's just amazing. So I really like this is why this card is here, basically. It's tutorable with all of these cards. I have a second Masticore. The Null Rods were this I could see potentially cutting. I feel that I don't necessarily. It's just such a blowout against a lot of decks, like the decks that play Mox, Diamond, things like that. If you use a lot, it was mainly a lot for the that deck with Scroll Rack and Land Tax. But now that Land Tax is bad, I could see if I'm going to cut one card, it could be Null Rod, perhaps. 1 Null Rod I might cut. Especially since the matchups where I want to use Null Rod a lot of the time are against those Graveyard Reanimator type decks, even against. So it's sort of but then it kills my chance of using these Graveyard Hate artifacts, you see. So it's sort of a non-bow. I find I want to play sideboard both these in, but it's sort of inconsistent. So one of these is probably on the hook to be removed for something. I'm not sure. Otherwise, I'm fine with this. I do like to have some at least 3 Graveyard Hate cards for those graveyard matchups. I do like a Phyrexian Furnace against the Mirror, even is very strong, and against just those decks that in worst case it cycles. So if you play it, and even you can play it if too much of your deck is useless and you need to cut things, you just play this and it cycles. So it's very rarely bad. It could be that I even want more, maybe Phyrexian, like more anti-graveyard cards. The matchup that gave me the most trouble before in 2023 was the blue-white replenish deck. So just being able to hit cards in their graveyard is very strong with Phyrexian Furnace. So that's potentially, maybe I play a second Phyrexian Furnace. Potentially, I'm not sure though. So yeah, otherwise that's the deck. Notable omissions are the Goblin Sharpshooter. It could be I play a Sharpshooter as well, but you know, it's I find it not like the amount of times where I used it. It's not even good against goblins because typically they get theirs like faster than you get yours out, as you have to struggle to find that mountain. That's the big problem, right? You have using Yavimaya Granger to get a mountain against goblins, then to play that, it doesn't, and if you want to set up haste, it takes too much time, and usually they can get their sharpshooter at first, so it doesn't really work. It's too hard, like natural mountain, as you know, with only 5 mana sources is very difficult. So I found that against goblins is not good. And there's no really, other than the only good match I find then for the sharpshooter, really, where it's good, where Masticore like is not as good is in the mirror match, but really the mirror match is sort of just comes down to like a coin flip. Like it does maybe give a small advantage of obviously if you naturally have a sharpshooter, but but you need natural mountain anyway. So I find the many mirror matchups come down to like, okay, who gets their Priest of Titania honestly first usually will win the game. So it's just to me the mirror is not something I care to win too much. I mean, maybe if you all start to play elves I care more, but yeah, that's about it I think for this deck. Well-Wisher is here as well. Well-Wisher is another card, by the way. I'm not 100% sure. It's on the outs. It's just usually I side it out like every in every matchup like that, like usually the engineer plagues come in, all the elf hate comes in, this card gets a lot worse. The only match it's really good against, that like it's okay against goblins I find, but goblins is sort of like you don't want to gain life against goblins. You need to stop what they're doing because it doesn't matter how much life, like it's not good. To make a long story short, I don't like Well-Wisher against goblins. Because I find goblins, it doesn't matter how much life you have, they're going to you need to get them, you need to basically get a Masticore out and gun down their board before they get going, which is very difficult to do. It's easier with Nishoba, but that's again, Wall of Roots is mainly for goblins as well. That was the other deck that gave me a hard time. Until of course when I had 2 Wall of Roots and 2 Pyroclasms, goblins was a lot easier. Anyway, so this is good against burn. Well-Wisher is good against burn, basically, but even then it's not good because you have to like get your haste package, or you're never gonna have. There's no chance they're gonna let it sit for a turn, right? So you have to have the haste package. You have to have enough elves. The setup cost against burn is so huge, where I feel that like if you get it going, you're pretty much already winning the game anyway, kind of thing, right? So again, I think Ravenous Baloth doesn't have much of a setup cost. You just play it, and that's that. So I mean, yeah, this serves as a lightning rod, but even post game, they have a lot of lava darts and things that just can easily do 1 damage. Lava darts. The Lava Mancer, it's just so hard. I find just Ravenous Baloth is a lot better. So if I could have a second one is better. Like not only see Ravenous Baloth's good against burn, but also goblins. Whereas this is good against burn. The only reason I like Well-Wisher is that it did contribute to my win rate against the Stifle Knot decks, because it's funny, sometimes they're attacking you with Stifle Knot, but you're just gaining like right? If you have Quirion Ranger down and you have whatever ways to taunt, usually with Quirion Rangers and Byward Symbiotes, like you can easily gain more than 12 life a turn with this thing. And so you're kind of laughing, like it's like, you know, this comes down turn 2, they don't really want to counter it because it's a Well-Wisher. But then all of a sudden it's just another way of getting, like, it's one of those things where you can tutor for it, and now all of a sudden you're presenting problems for their Dreadnought. Because again, you can't really tutor for Naturalize, right? So it's one of those outs. Like Octavia Orangutan is an out, and so is this. So, Burn and Dreadnought are two big cards. And I feel that, like, it's worth it. It's okay to have, and it's if anything just another elf, but it's definitely in this 60 cards, definitely on the bottom. But again, like it's one of those things. So would I play 2 Wall of Roots? Well, maybe, but again, having if you think about it though, having the split gives your deck more versatility, which provides you with better ways to adapt to different matchups. Though still, I'm not 100% sure about the Well-Wisher. All right, well, I think that about wraps it all up. If you have any questions, please, you're welcome to leave a comment in the description below. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. So, yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and I'll hope to see you watch the videos for my matches. Thank you.